There is a player who is impressing the Baylor football coaches so much that he's going to be playing all over the field for the Bears this season. And if you don't know him yet, you're about to know him now. We'll tell you all about him on Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Bears fans. Welcome into another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by 5 Hour Energy and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I am your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. And the roster came out. We're going to talk about the Baylor football roster as we are just now counting down the days, 4 days to kick off against Tarleton. And then we get some basketball, probably the last bit of basketball we can throw in there for the next couple of months. But a big time visit this weekend and a potential new rival coming into the Big 12 and what that means for the conference for Baylor and for that team. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. I teased it at the beginning. There is a player on this Baylor football team that has been so impressive to the football coaches that he will be playing all over the field. I'm talking offense. I'm talking defense. I'm talking special teams. And with how much this guy pops up on the depth chart, you might just see him as an all Big 12 selection. That player, of course, is Orr. No, not the greatest hockey player ever to lace up the skates. One less R than that. Orr is all over this Baylor depth chart. Orr is at two different receiver positions. Orr is at left guard and right guard. Orr is at tight end. He is at running back. He is at cornerback. He is at kick returner. And he is at punt returner. All over the field, all three facets of the game, all over this Baylor football depth chart, we see Orr. It's Dave Aranda's favorite player. And I don't know how many other coaches do this. I really don't. But Baylor's loved throwing Orr out there the last 2-3 seasons. And I don't know. To me, it just leads to a ton of indifference. And over the last few seasons, it has not led to good results. Is it because Dave Aranda puts Orr on the depth chart that they have been what's the record? 9-17 since winning the Sugar Bowl? Probably not. Probably not. Let's just put that out there. But it's kind of annoying. It's kind of annoying to see. Because as we look through this depth chart, we're hoping for answers. We got a new coaching staff in here coming off a 3-9 season. We're hoping to see who are going to be the leaders of this team. And instead, I look at wide receiver, Katron Jackson. Okay, it's a guy who brought in with a ton of hype. Played well at times last year. Well, it's him or Hal Presley. Okay, fine. Let's look at slot receiver. We all love Monterey Baldwin. Now he's one of the elder statesmen on the team. Is it going to be Monterey Baldwin or Ashton Hawkins? Another hype guy coming in from the transfer portals. Don't know who that's going to be. Thankfully, you can rotate a bunch of guys in at receiver. No problem, right? That's what this offense is going to do. On the offensive line, I don't love it. Right guard and left guard. Okay, it's not tackle. Mind you, that would be worse. But you've got Orrs for both of them. And one of them, by the way, at left guard is Sidney Fugar, who I thought was too big to play guard. But maybe not. Maybe not. Look, at this point, I don't care what positions they play as long as it's a cohesive, good unit. Good unit that's also cohesive. Not one or the other. And I just don't love with how big a question mark this offensive line going into this year and how detrimental it was to you last year that you don't know who your best five are. You had fall camp, you had spring camp for a lot of these guys, and still we don't know who the best five are, allegedly. Tight end, you've got Orr playing there too, Kelsey Johnson or Michael Trigg. Backed up by Matthew Klopfenstein, who I thought impressed in his limited usage as a freshman. Or very much comes out to play at the running back position because I did a show on it last week. Dawson Pendergrass was taking the reps with the ones. I saw some people in the comment section. I had some people reach out to me who had been at camp and said, it's not that cut and dry. There's guys rotating in. And I guess those people were right, because the running back position is headlined by Dawson Pendergrass or Richard Reese or Dominic Richardson or Bryson Washington. Who's to say? Any one of those four could be the starter. Any one of those could be your bell cow. We've got four of them. Who needs just one? Oklahoma State, they got one. Who cares? We got four of them. Anyway, it popped again on the defense. Thankfully, only once on the defensive side of the ball. I was happy to see that. It's at cornerback opposite Caden Jenkins, so that's good. Good news. Caden Jenkins has his spot. But opposite him, it'll be Chateau Reed or Snacks Johnson. And before I get past the or thing, the star position, I was quite surprised. Carl Williams slotting in there. Didn't know if he was going to be a corner, safety, or star. He did, I believe, play some star last year. And this is a guy who the coaching staff has a lot of confidence in. I was just surprised to see through all of these ors and all of these bolds, my guy Kendrick Simpkins did not make it there. Is not a starter on the depth chart as we enter week one. That's too bad. It's a guy I liked coming out of Western Kentucky, a guy I had a lot of high praise for, a guy I said reminded me of Rodney Harrison. Not a starter on this team. Bad look on old Cam Reno. The ors come back again in special teams in heavy fashion. Okay, Tarleton is kicking off to start the season. Who is back there for the Baylor Bears? It's Monterey Baldwin, I tell you. Or maybe it's Jamal Bell. Or, it could be Josh Cameron. And have you thought of Ashton Hawkins? Well, the guy who took back the most kicks last year for Baylor for touchdowns is Richard Reese. Oh, yeah, him too. Okay, so that's a confusing one. But when Tarleton's going to punt, because hopefully Baylor will force some punts out of them, who's going to be back there to catch it? Well, Josh Cameron was pretty good at that. But, Monterey Baldwin, he's pretty fast too. Or Jamal Bell, he's really fast. Or Ashton Hawkins. Throw Richard Reese in there too. Why not? All the same five guys for the kick return and the punt returner. Is this Dave Aranda being intentionally obtuse and holding it close to the vest here? Potentially, because the battle we talked about all offseason was quarterback, and that's one of like three positions on the depth chart that is clear cut. We have a starter. It's not an or. It is DeQuan Finn. So, looking at the guys, this will be, the good end of this is the guys who do have the bold names that don't have or, and that is DeQuan Finn. It's Gavin Yates, a fullback, just in case you were worried about that. Josh Cameron at one of the receiver positions. Both of your tackles, like I mentioned, Colton Price at the left tackle. Did I get that right? No, he's the center. Sorry. Alvin Abiselli at the left tackle. I was like, that did not sound right. And Campbell Barrington at the right tackle. You've got your franchise cornerstone cornerback, Caden Jenkins. Happy to see Devin Bobby take over that strong safety role for sure. Devin Lemire at the free safety. Keaton Thomas, Matt Jones at linebacker. I am very excited about both of those guys. So there is some positives that come out of that. But either Baylor is going to rotate better than anyone in the country offensively, or they have not figured out who their starting guys are. And this is controversial. I think that's okay. I do wonder if it is like what the requirements are for releasing a depth chart, because it seems like Dave Aranda just wouldn't, if he had his druthers, wouldn't do it. But I don't know if that's an NCAA rule or what. But a lot of oars on there, more oars than a lifeboat on there, than a raft. We've got more of them on the Baylor football depth chart than we have saving people's lives. Anyway, we're going to get some basketball talk in here. Kind of the last one for a while, probably, unless something huge happens. But we have some big Baylor basketball news, and it does relate to this weekend that's coming up on Locked On Baylor. Oh, there you are. Are you tired after lunch? You're not alone, and neither am I. In fact, research shows that more than 70% of us hit that wall after lunch. Let a 5-hour energy shot help you leap over that wall instead of crashing into it. With zero sugar and a convenient portable size, it is the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. And we got to get to Saturday, people. So we got to get through this week first. The 5-Hour Energy website has flavors galore. Try watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry. More than that, there's flavors for anyone. Just try them all. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and you can go to 5hourenergy.com. That is the number 5hourenergy.com. Get some 5-Hour Energy product today. You can use my code, which is LOCKEDONCFB, to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order. It cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good for subscription orders, but once again, that promo code is LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. So go to 5hourenergy.com today. Or else. Okay, I found the button. Basketball, big time visit for the Bears this weekend. And please, no pun intended, bear with me as I try to get this name right. I want to make sure our young man gets his due because he is a big time prospect. And in fact, he is the number 11 overall recruit in the 2025 class. That's according to On3. His name is Tunde Yesufu from California, and he has scheduled official visits. This word just broke yesterday from Joe Tipton, who is one of the big national guys from On3, and Baylor is on that list, and it is this weekend. Would you believe that? August 29th through the 31st, roughly, he is coming down to Central Texas during Elvis weekend. Can you believe that? Man, they're going to really pull out the stops this weekend. Elvis, home football game, 110 degrees. He is going to see the very best of what we have here in Texas. And so that is a big one this weekend. He has narrowed his list down. It was 8 a few weeks ago. It is now at, if I could do my math here, 7. And these bloods, for the most part, are pretty blue. Outside of Arizona State, you've also got UCLA, Tennessee, UConn, Kansas, and Kentucky. You might have heard of them. The Baylor Bears are in there as well. And there is, you guys know I love making comparisons when looking at these high school kids or these transfer portal guys that Baylor basketball is looking at. And there's one that jumped off the page for me as soon as I started watching this kid's tape. And I'm not the only one to make this. It's in some of the stories about him. It's in probably the comment sections as well. I see this kid at 6'5" and 210 pounds, had a small forward who is running in transition. And I see Anthony Edwards. I see it. I'm manifesting it. The guy who thinks he's the best player on Team USA, the former number 1 pick in the draft, one of the great legends from the Tom Crean pool. Yeah, I see a lot of Anthony Edwards there. The explosiveness, man, it is off the charts. Off the charts good. I mean, that's how you get to be the number 11 recruit in that 2025 class. Transition, he is incredible. That's where he's doing a lot of his scoring. And he is a meet me at the rim kind of guy. How much so? How about this? In his freshman year in high school in California, they literally had to postpone a game. They had to call a game early because he had a lane to the basket. And he threw that down so hard that the backboard broke. The backboard caved down. They had to call the game. He is a guy who was too much for his own high school basketball team. As a freshman, he did that. My goodness, man. He just played in this elite AAU competition in the summer. 5-star recruit. I got to find the acronym for it. EYBL 17U. AAU, they love just throwing a bunch of games going on at once. They love throwing random acronyms at you, but this is one of the big ones in the summer. He averaged almost 22 points a game, 4 rebounds, and almost an assist and a half. And ranked, according to NBA Draft on SI, ranking in the 96th percentile in points per possession. Love that. This writer goes on to say, and I'll give the writer some credit here. The writer is, it's another name that's tough. Moria Kumpatla is out there covering for SI, the NBA draft board, says He's a dominant athlete who is strong, quick, and an explosive vertical athlete. I don't like using athlete twice in the same sentence, but it bears repeating. He pairs this athleticism with ball handling, finishing craft, and touch on the offensive end while racking up steals and blocks on the defensive end. And through all the stories, it's pretty clear that he's still working on that ball handling. I mean, you can see it in transition. He is a guy who, again, is going to get to the basket. I mean, he is really tough to stop with a full head of steam. And if he develops those handles more, that's where I see him in the future. He's 6'5". He plays a little bigger than that from what you can see on the tape, but you also got to take into account that these are high school kids, even some of the best high school kids. And so I see that 6'5", big body, big frame as a guy who is going to be a guard in the future, either in college or certainly at the level after that. You're not playing small forward at 6'5" in the NBA, and you really can't even do that most times in the Big 12. This story goes on to talk about he shoots 66% at the rim and 65% on layups in this tournament. He can be a play finisher in transition or on cuts and creates his own shot at the rim with the post-ups and the drive. So he does play like a forward if you watch. When he's not in transition, I should say. When he's in the half court, he's playing like a forward. Okay, he's posting up. He's cutting to the basket. They're drawing up plays for him to cut to the basket off inbounds as well. So there's a lot of forward in there. But they talk about his shooting. He shot 44.5% on mid-range. Isn't a huge part of the game anymore. And 60% on floaters and hook shots and 85% at the line. So he's not a huge three-point shooter. I mean, it seems like every player these days develops that at some point. But you are talking about an ultra explosive and ultra aggressive guy who will still probably be able to play some small forward in the Big 12, but is a guy who's going to be an off the ball guard for you. And especially we've seen Scott Drew and Baylor throw out a lot of 3-guard sets really for the last 4 or 5 years now. That's someone who I think could slot into that. But again, we talk about the international success that Scott Drew has, especially with kids coming from the continent of Africa. That's once again, our guy is very much fitting that bill. He moved to California as a high school kid. Tunde Yesufu did. He is from, Benin is the name of the country. And it's on the coast of Africa, small country. And you just look down the list at how many guys have not only come from overseas, obviously, Miro Little played a year here recently, but Manu LeConte played a couple years from Belgium originally. But how many of these guys have come from the continent of Africa, right? Almost all of them, of course, moved to the U.S. in middle school or high school. But Flo Thamba, Jonathan Chamwa-Chachua, Yves Missi, who just went in the first round of the draft, Nuni Omat, who just impressed at the Olympics, Joe Lawal-Achuel. It just goes on and on and on. Now, Baylor's best international recruiter is no longer there in John Jacobs, but clearly Scott Drew has a good foothold on getting some of these international kids. And a lot of it is the family atmosphere that's around Baylor. I know some people don't want to keep hearing about that, but that is true. Like, that helps a lot of these kids in making that transition to big time college basketball in the United States before they go on to the next step. And yeah, Tunde Yesufu has been pretty open talking about his faith and where that has been in his basketball journey. And of the schools I just listed to you, there's one with a religious affiliation, and they kind of take it pretty seriously at Baylor. So look, just as good a shot as anyone. And again, it's still crazy to say that when he's going up against Kentucky and Kansas and UConn, to say that, yeah, Baylor's got just as good a shot as any. But that is where we're at right now. And I love that. Speaking of one of those teams that's also on Tunde Yesufu's list, could one of them, that's not Kansas or Arizona State, obviously, because they're already here, could one of them be joining the Big 12? Interesting. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate College Football Head Coach. I want to take you a moment to bring you inside this game that has got me enthralled. It is a simulation game. You get to step into the shoes of your head coach, your Dave Aranda, and lead your Baylor Bears to glory. Could you imagine being Dave Aranda? That'd be pretty cool. They're pretty awesome. You recruit players, hire a coaching staff, you oversee the practices, you handle the scholarships. You control every crucial detail of the program. It's in your hands. And what I really love about it is you call the plays too. Your strategy is not only going to determine the success of your football season, but is also going to shape the future and the legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football Head Coach is completely free. It has no ads and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And of course, we have a special offer for you fans of Locked On Baylor. Just use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB. That's all caps inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. So make sure to take advantage of that. Download the game. Just visit ultimate-cfb.com. Look it up in the app stores. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Begin your coaching legacy. Why don't you just do that today, if you don't mind? Today's episode is also brought to you by Ibotta. All right. I know you guys are thinking about it all summer long. Sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids. You're probably thinking about it for this 100-degree Saturday football game we've got going on at McLean this weekend. You're probably buying a ton of it this summer. But you don't need to stress about the cost. You don't have to. Use Ibotta and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on all of your summer or tailgating essentials. Ibotta is a free app, lets you earn cash back every time you shop. You earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average user is saving over $250 a year. So what are you waiting for? Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta and using the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back, and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and then the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, which is COLLEGE at the end. So one of those schools on Yesufu's list is UConn. And the rumor over the weekend and into this week is that Brett Yormark is once again up to his old tricks. He wants to add UConn to the Big 12. And that sparked a ton of questions for me right away. We have seen Brett go for the basketball expansion. There's hot rumors about Gonzaga last year, and it didn't get off the ground, really. I think there was a lot of outside noise about how do you add a team or a school to this conference that really only competes in basketball. If we're talking about revenue sports, they don't have a football team. Baseball is not revenue. So why do you do that? Brett Yormark is clearly looking to get the best basketball conference possible. He's already got it, and he's trying to make it better. The other problem with Gonzaga is it's a small school, and it's very far away from everything, even those pack schools that you added. Well, here's one that's a little bit closer to one of the teams in the Big 12. It's a little bit bigger, and they do play football. And yes, I am talking about the UConn Huskies. Why does the Big 12 want to add UConn? I can see why UConn want to go to the Big 12. Why is it the other way around? I don't have a great answer for you. UConn's really good at basketball. Really, really good. We know that. Women's team's been good for a long, long time. Men's team has had a dynasty over the last 25 years and has won the last 2 national championships. You don't need me to recap that to know that UConn is good at basketball. But how does that work? I mean, that sport that UConn plays on the gridiron in the fall can barely be called football. I'm telling you, it's a dead program. And so from UConn's standpoint, I get it. The Big East is right where they should be geographically and size-wise, but with the money being thrown around, you don't want to stay in the Big East for basketball if you can go in the Big 12. Ideally, they would go to the ACC, but I'll give you a little history lesson from the Northeast. Boston College has been blackballing that for decades. It's pathetic, really. They won't let UConn into the ACC. They are way too afraid of splitting up that market. But UConn, Hartford, could also be seen as a stretch as the New York market, which is exactly what Brett Yormark wants. I'm telling you, it's a little closer to Boston than it is to New York. It's a good 3 or 4 hours from Manhattan. So I don't think you're really getting that market the way you think you are. But that's what Brett Yormark is going for. Basketball powerhouse, brings you kind of another region, gives you New York City. At least that's what he's thinking. I don't see that. As a fan, sure. Like, why not? Put UConn in there. Whatever. I'm not on the swim team or the cross country team or the golf team that has to travel to Storrs, Connecticut from Waco or Lubbock or Tucson or Tempe or Boulder. I'm not that. So as a fan, yeah, sure, I'd love it. And if I ever relocate back to New England, it'd be great to just drive down to Storrs and see Baylor basketball. But from a conference standpoint, I don't think it's going to pass. I don't think it will. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think about it. Would you make this a complete murderer's row in terms of a basketball conference, men's and women's? Let me know down in the comments below whether you would add UConn to the Big 12 and what you think about this depth chart madness, this depth chart chaos. Let me know what you think about the OR guys and your biggest questions for Baylor football going into this weekend, I should say. I mentioned on yesterday's show that I had already put it on Twitter. I had not. It has now been on Twitter. I guarantee it. It's got a funny picture with it. So let me know what your thoughts, your biggest questions are going into this weekend, and we'll address that all this week on Locked On Baylor, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. So be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Be sure to ring that notification bell. Get involved down in the comment section below. And thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We'll be back with you tomorrow on Locked On Baylor.